Hi, my name is Chase Crittenden. I am from Seattle, Washington, and currently I'm the creative director of a project called the World of Kylia. I've been creating professionally now for around 10 years. I started when I was 16 creating short films and commercials for companies that were in my area. And then I ended up going throughout high school and then college, and after I graduated I did more commercial work, and recently I started my own project. So I have an interesting story because I started traditionally traditional live action video and then ended up moving to 3D. But film in general is just an amazing medium. I like it because I have so many random interests. I like making things with my hand, I like photography, I like meeting new people, and videography and film work in general seemed like it really fit that. And then as COVID happened, that kind of got taken away from me. I couldn't do as many live action projects. So I was looking for something to do, and I saw a YouTube tutorial on how to use Blender, which is this free modeling program for 3D work. And I fell in love, and I ended up teaching myself how to be a 3D modeler. And then as I was learning and becoming a better 3D modeler, I ended up talking to clients, and I was like, hey, we don't have to just do live action anymore. We can mix in 3D assets. So I ended up kind of starting to branch the two areas of my life, which one was a hobby and one was my profession. And then I ended up kind of transitioning more into 3D work because I feel like the limitations are a lot less than live action work, especially budget wise. It's mostly just a time commitment. If I put enough time into something, I can make it happen. So I end up falling in love with 3D. Obviously I still love traditional filmmaking with live action stuff, but now I feel like I ended up building my my skill set, and now I can transition between the two. As a filmmaker, picking a favorite movie is really hard. If I had to say one film that stood out in my childhood, I would say was Hellboy by Guillermo del Toro. One, he's my favorite director of all time, so his work is always amazing. But I'm a huge fan of comics, and that was one of the first comic movies where it really opened my eyes about the possibilities of translating something that is 2D on a page into 3D and making it feel genuine. And I'm trying to think of my favorite movie now, but the original Hellboy still might be one of my favorite movies. It's always hard to say as a filmmaker because, Christopher Nolan's work is amazing. The trilogy of Batman films is phenomenal. And there's a lot of films that stand out, but I'd say probably still Hellboy is probably my favorite movie. I draw inspiration from a lot of random sources. Music is a huge inspiration for me. As I'm thinking about scenes in a movie, I often will listen to my albums that I'll make specifically for a film. So I have the main project I'm working on. I've had a Spotify playlist since 2015. So around 8 years now of just adding music of here's one specific scene I have in mind. So music for me is a huge one because it allows me to imagine my characters and the action or fight scenes that are going to be in it. Also, I draw a lot of inspiration from anime. That was a huge part of my life growing up, watching Dragon Ball, Naruto, Bleach, all of the original, or not super original, but for me those are the original inspirations in my life. So I draw a lot of inspiration from anime, music, and then obviously films. The biggest thing for me that I wish I had learned sooner was how important social media is to being an artist. In my early career, I just made videos and then just sent them to the clients. So I worked on a lot of really big projects. I was lucky enough to work on a lot of big projects, but it was just that kind of back and forth. I didn't really have the chance to promote myself as a brand. And as I got later into my career, although I guess I'm only 26, so it's still early in my career and long term, but as I got later into my filmmaking, I learned that showing people what you can do is almost as important as the act of doing it itself, just because I got so many more clients by showing people the animations or the videos I was able to make for artists or for myself. Okay, so I'm a little bit spoiled in this aspect. I think the project I'm working on right now is my ideal project, and I know that might be like kind of corny to say, but realistically, I love comic books. Again, I love anime. I love westerns. I love sci-fi. You know, Blade Runner was a huge inspiration for me as a kid as well. So the project I'm working on is all set in that kind of setting, and the thing that sets my project apart from other projects I've worked on is that within my project we're doing things like books, comic books, and a film series, well, multiple film series. So I'm able to kind of take all of the things I'm interested and pour it into one project where it kind of has a home and it feels like I'm able to connect with fans, which has been absolutely amazing, and it's actually broadened my horizons. I've always been a fan of video games, but I've never really been huge into tabletop RPGs. And as I was developing the project, we had multiple people come up and say like, hey, would you guys ever do like a D&D game or whatever? And I ended up spending the last 3 months in between animating to like make a D&D game. So it feels like this project has really allowed me to take all of the things that are kind of random that I'm interested in and pour them all into one project. So yeah, I think I'm lucky enough that I kind of found my in-game project, I guess, if that makes sense. Obviously, there's other things outside of this project that eventually I'll want to work on, but as of right now, it feels like I really have a great home. So, yeah. When I was in high school, I heard about Dune for the first time, and being someone that's working on a sci-fi fantasy project, it was like the perfect translation to like what I eventually wanted my project to turn into. So when I was a kid, I watched the original Dune movie and I was like, oh, this is good, but it's not as good as it could be, especially as I was growing up in like high school. You know, that's when the Batman films were coming out, and that's when all these like other wonderful works of art that were translated from one medium to another were coming out. So I saw myself and I was like, wait, I could like eventually grow up and translate this into like a finished project and really give it the respect it deserves in a movie format. And then a couple years ago, Dune came out, and obviously it's phenomenal, but it would have been amazing to have a hand in that project. It would have been a lot of fun. I think there's value in both. I would say most of my knowledge comes from being self-taught. With traditional video work, I completely taught myself just off of YouTube. And then I went, after my high school days, I went to college where I majored in film production. So I did directing, that was like my emphasis. But as I picked up 3D animation, I actually taught myself everything I know just off of YouTube tutorials and then messing around in Blender. So I think there's value in both. But even if you go to school, I would say a majority of this stuff is just by working on your craft, you'll learn most of your knowledge. If I had to choose a spirit animal, it'd be kind of tough. I love animals, so as a kid I had a bunch of snakes, bearded dragons, I have a leopard gecko right now, I love fish. I'd say my spirit animal is, this isn't a real life animal, but it definitely feels like what my spirit animal would be, and that's a dragon. I have 2 tattooed on my back. I absolutely love dragons. I don't know why, but as a kid I just thought they were the coolest thing. And this may be like a throwback to 90s kids, but in like the early 2000s at book fairs, they had a book on dragons, like they were like speculative science or whatever. And I remember buying that and like flipping through all the pages about like the water dragon and the earth dragon, all these things, and it really captured my attention. So I feel like if spirit animals do exist, mine is definitely a dragon. So yeah.